go from there.
Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate this opportunity. And I have my vice chair with me, Charmaine. And I just want to say thank you. TOC thanks you. And part of what we're doing, you do have our mission, but I want to emphasize strongly that our program is uniquely tailored for survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault, in that we have come together and we have a program. Our program is strictly for their safety. So we're looking to provide a safe environment strictly for survivors that does not have anything to do with the public. We're combining a technical training and job preparedness program, in that we have the highest nationally recognized pharmacy training program that we're going to be offering them for certification in that program, along with an internationally well-known, recognized personal leadership development program of John Maxwell, as well as John Maxwell's DISC personality indicator methodology and tools to be able to offer them development for their character, leadership development, so that will support them while they're in the program, doing the pharmacy training, and they will be able to have coaching, mentoring, as well as working with the community to be able to offer recruitment and job training, those different services. We want to set them up for success. So with the coaching and the leadership development, we want them to at least be able to apply those skills as they're going through the program for personal development, because this program for the DISC Maxwell assessment, it will give them a personal development plan and coaching through one of our trainers and one of our coaches. So that is our unique plan for our survivors, because we want them to really be successful, and we want them to be able to apply it while they're in the program and be able to use it as they leave the program. Charmaine, did I miss anything? You're muted. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. I was on mute because I didn't know that I was going to have anything to say, but no, I don't think that you missed anything. I think you covered everything.
Thank you.
Who wants to start? Justin?
Sure. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's clear a real sense of passion around the comprehensive support. So not just the skill set, but obviously it sounds like a history both in the pharmaceutical world, but also or the pharmacy world, but also the recognition of the skills support for folks so that they're thriving well. That came across very clearly. I think I'm more curious about your questions. What is it that you are, as you're thinking about starting this up? Because it sounds like you've thought a lot about the structure of the program, and I'm just curious. Initial questions that have come up with you, or things that you've learned or have questions about as you've talked to other people about what you're interested in doing.
Thank you for that question. I have a few questions. One of them being, we have been working on the strategic plan. It is incomplete. We've also started looking at ways to to apply for grants. And so we're trying to do several different things. And so one of the questions I have has to do with grant writing. I am not a grant writer, but I will do whatever I need to do to apply to be able to get the help that we need to get this off the ground. I would need services. I need ideas of how to raise the money. Support for, is there support for grant writing? Is there, how do I manage all this and still try to, without staff? Or without access to staff. So I do have a lot of questions because I guess you can tell I'm trying to do everything, and it's only so much I can do. I have volunteers that try to help me, and I'm tapping on everybody's door to get help, to get resources, to get information. Whatever I can get, I'm seeking and knocking at those doors. So I would really, I welcome your advice and expertise, knowledge, and input on how I can go about, or what you would recommend for us to be able to move this forward. The strategic plan, it's a work in progress. We have, I'm a former volunteer of domestic violence. So in the shelters here in Montgomery County and in Virginia. So I have background knowledge of the domestic violence shelters, the residency, and all that. We're trying to mimic that safety protocol, not wanting to be in Google, not wanting to be searched out, that kind of thing. So I'm running into some brick roads with trying to understand how to do all that and who to talk to. And that's kind of where I am.
Okay. You gave us some good hints. Who have you spoken to? Who, what you said, I'm tapping on doors, you're asking for help. Who have you talked to? Who have you started working with, just so we don't give you what you've already done?
Sure. I was talking to the Maryland nonprofits. They had given me a consultant for so many hours, but those hours are expired. I don't have access to any consultant or anyone at this point because I guess of funding, and I guess because of the fiscal year, maybe what it is, the funds are out. So I have even tapped that SCORE. I've tapped with the Maryland PTAC. They don't have, the person that I've contacted at Maryland PTAC, he said he's not familiar with grants, but he does try to give me some really good business professional advice. So those are the doors that I've knocked on. And I'm still not where I need to be.
Yeah, I can see why. So PTAC really is specialized in getting government contracts, federal government contracts, and you're probably just not there yet. So not that it's not a good resource, it's a fabulous resource. It's just not the right one for you. SCORE could be a little bit of magic with SCORE. They kind of, they hook you up with a mentor, and sometimes you got to find the right one, and sometimes it's the right one, but not for everything you need. So hang on to them. Maryland Women's Business Center, you work with them yet?
I did start working with them through the chamber, but that wasn't for the nonprofit at all. I went through a pathway program, but I had to put everything on hold trying to get this together, but I haven't been able to get with anyone there at this point because what they were trying to do was help me with the marketing, and I'm not at the marketing stage yet.
Okay. I wonder, we may or may not be talking about the same people, but this is the one I was talking about was the Maryland Women's Business Center located in Rockville. There's one in Rockville, and then they also have branches out in Bowie and in Frederick.
Oh no, I didn't do that. No, I'm sorry.
Okay, we'll get that information to you. I think it's marylandwbc.org.
Okay.
Different group. They'll talk to you about marketing all day long. They give a lot of good classes, but they can talk to you about the structural and the strategic, the plan. They're really good at business plans there.
Okay.
So I would definitely try that. Also, the Maryland Small Business Development Center. I think it's mdsbdc.org. Lily, look it up for me when you do your notes, please.
Okay.
Make sure it's right, because it's off the top of my head. Good counselors there who, even though you're a nonprofit, you're still a business. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Okay.
I would say it's a tax status, not a business model. You still
Okay.
have to bring in revenue and you have to plan in exactly the same way that any other for-profit business does, because you got to pay people to do the
Right.
work. So,
Thank you.
okay. So don't let anybody tell you otherwise. You want to plan this just like any other for-profit. Okay.
Okay.
So that's a couple of resources for you right there that
Okay.
that I would start with.
Okay.
So, where are you located?
We are right now, we're just online. I am planning on going to the schools. I've been looking at a school in Silver Spring, classroom in Silver Spring, or the library, actually.
Okay, so so when you got the address you're using is probably a home address, right?
It's
'Cause you
just a
had to get-
PO box right now.
Okay,
Yes.
that's fine, and that's what my suggestion was in terms of keeping the privacy and all that stuff. I mean,
Okay.
I think you're just gonna run everything. If it were me, to just off the top of my head, and I am not an expert on this one, I would definitely talk to the domestic violence contacts you have about how they do the privacy piece. I
Okay.
suspect they're probably just running everything through a PO box or running everything through an answering service.
Okay.
You know, one of the many answering services and co-working spaces where you don't actually have to take space, but you can pay them to run everything through them.
Okay.
So that keeps your actual address anonymous. But talk to them; they're the ones who know how to. You know, talk to the folks who are in the business.
Okay.
And frankly, I'm sure there's enough demand that I'm pretty sure people aren't going to be too worried about it if you're doing it too. But I bet they'll, if you ask, most people like to be asked for advice.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
you're quite welcome. Thank you for doing what you're doing. It's very important.
Thank you.
Louis, I think you probably can weigh in on some of the sponsorship, proposal writing.
Yeah, you started to mention the strategic plan and kind of where you stood, and then grant writing. And it seems like credit to you, where you've had a lot of help and some guidance, and you have a colleague, your board chair here. Is there a point where, in terms of that plan or the grant writing, where there's been a stopping point, or what's the hurdle, or is there a hurdle in terms of completing that plan, or in terms of moving forward?
Where we are right now, I went as far as I could go. I'm working with the pharmacy team. We have a pharmacy team of about 15 that consist of pharmacy technicians and pharmacists who are pulling together that pharmacy program. And they're working on one portion of that strategic plan, but we are at a point where I think I just need someone who really knows about it to really look at it and give me some input. And that's kind of where I guess the consultant is not available, or I can't get that help, and trying to find who I can talk to even say, okay, this is where you are. And this is what still needs to be done. That's kind of where I am. We're walking it out, trying to get the implementation process walked out. The grant writing, I've been looking through different grant sources since I am still a member of the Maryland nonprofit. I can go in and ask for permission to go into the grant writing to see different grants. So I'm able to go in there, pulled some grants and apply. So I'm looking at some of those. We just applied for the Walmart grant, and we're looking at trying to apply for the NASDAQ grant, which is by August. So I pulled a couple grants down so we could start looking at the format of what needs to be done. But I'm the one who's actually doing this, and I'm the one who's actually trying to go forward in writing it. And I have the pharmacy team working on the strategic portion of it, and then I'm trying to help them with that. And I just need, I guess, some people to come together who knows about it strictly, because we've been told, strategic plan, logical model. We've been told so many different things. And, it's like, okay, well, the logic model is this, and it's just hasn't come together like we wanted. So that's kind of what I would like to get a consensus on, someone who knows about it to say, okay, you're headed in the right direction, but you need to do this or something like that. And that's kind of where we're stuck.
Right, and I don't know if this is an answer, yet there are a lot of different models. There are a lot of different approaches. And ultimately, it's going to come, you're the one who's founding the organization and you're working with a team of pharmacists, you're working with others. It's likely going to be your call in conjunction with the board and others. Yet the key point is what steps in conjunction with the board, with the consultants that you've worked with, what do you see
Okay.
as the next step? Because my sense is this is your mission, this is your focus, this is in your heart where you want to move forward. So as you look at all of these models, we can weigh them, we can evaluate them, yet ultimately need to pick one because there's validity to each of them.
Okay.
So from your standpoint, what do you see as the next step to take, either related to, on the grant writing side, there's probably someone on the pharmacy team or someone else who's involved who could help there in terms of the strategic plan, whether it's this model or that model or this model, to pick one, because they're all probably going to be acceptable. And I'll let Justin weigh in on that as well.
Okay. Okay. All right. That makes sense. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, so I will echo Lewis and probably make lots of enemies. Consultants have no idea what the best thing is for you to do. And I think, just to echo what Lewis was saying, like, you're talking to the people who know this. You are talking to the pharmacists who know what pharmacists need and what a good pharmacist training program is. You have the experience in terms of domestic violence and people who are recovering from that trauma and what they need to thrive. And you're putting those two pieces together. So the truth is, as Lewis was saying, you have the greatest expertise of what it takes. One of the things, and we do see this a lot, is we get caught behind everyone telling us what we should do. And we forget that there's a fundamental story that we need to work out for ourselves that we're telling people, which is, why do we think this matters? So, I mean, really imagine, I always like saying, take a family member, because my family members have no idea what I do. So how would you explain to somebody who doesn't know what you do, what you are doing and how it would work from the perspective of a woman coming through this process? And you spoke to some of those things at the beginning, some of the models you're using, but really telling that story around, this is what people need. This is what the pharmacy world is looking for and how they do things. This is what, the women that we're really interested in working with, this is what they need. And this is how we're combining them. And really, actually, one of the hardest parts, I would say, is sitting down and saying, what does it really take to help them in that way? And when we talk about logic modeling, that's the modeling, which is just, what does it really take that's there? And then who really cares about this? And it sounds like you've talked to people who care about this. And maybe this is also another little dirty secret, which is every business is started because they found people who cared about what they did, whether that's a venture capitalist or a business partner or a wealthy grandmother, or somebody came along and said, I care about what you're doing and I'm willing to invest either time or money into that. And I think continuing that conversation and asking people that you've already connected to, who else cares about this? Who in the pharmacy world cares about good pharmacists being trained? Because they may actually be much more interested in supporting something than Walmart or, Amazon or, the people who theoretically talk about this, or, your connections with people who are in the domestic violence space, which is, what are they seeing is really beneficial for women who are making this transition and trying to create that sense of stability and security in their lives. And who cares about programs that do that well? Because what you're talking about with the leadership development is a whole nother level to this that a lot of people don't touch on. Find those people and ask them, how does it need to work for them? And that may help you come up with a little better sense of what the organization design needs to look like, but B, it may bring more people in who are extra hands to help you, that are there. Because you have something that I think it's very clear you've thought about the benefits of it, and you've gone to the trouble of thinking like, what's best supportive. Now it's just a question of who cares and what would it actually need to look like for people to take it up and support it. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, it is. I really appreciate that, because I was, I was tearing my, I'm very analytical at times. I get to be analytical, and then I'm very disciplined. So when I'm trying to put something together, I'm a teacher by nature, because I used to teach in the county anyway. So the structure, I've always been one that really wants to make sure that the structure is in place, because I believe if the foundation is set right, then, the other things will be okay. So it's been, driving me crazy, because I just want to make sure it's right. And then my disc personality is, I am one of those people who want to comply to standards. So that's who I am. Okay. So I know my disc personality type. I like to make sure things are done in the right order. So that's where I was beating myself up. So you made a lot of sense. You also, Mr. Flax, when you were saying that I had this thing in my mind, but I thought, I had to make it conform to what the consultant was saying or what this agency said it should be. And then I went on there and they told me to go to YouTube, and I found millions of different models. And so I wasn't sure where my model fit. So that's what was very confusing. So you did help. Thank you so much for that. I
So
appreciate it.
I want to chime in just one thing as an analogy. And so thank you for saying that you were a teacher. I'm a teacher too, in my background. What you described at the top of the call was a wonderful curriculum. What you're talking about now is, what does the classroom look like that you're delivering that curriculum in? If I were going to use an analogy, think about that, which is, okay, I know the curriculum, I know the standards. Now the question is, what does a classroom look like that in that case, it's educating kids, but what does a classroom look like that helps women in this way and helps the pharmacy world in this way? I don't know if that's helpful as an analogy or to give you permission, but that's how I would draw a connection.
Okay.
And I was thinking the exact same thing that Justin mentioned. You're a teacher. All of us here are teachers. And we can learn a lot of different models in terms of how to teach or train, and we can read up. Yet when we get in the classroom, we need to make it happen. We need to take action. We need to do what we feel is right, even if there's a lot of different things going on in our head as to how to handle it or what to do. And you know what to do, because this is a space that you've lived in, you have experience, you have the knowledge, you have the team behind you. So it's like you're in the classroom. What is it that you do? There is a lot of different items to cover, a lot of different things to deal with, different students with different issues and different challenges. And in terms of the training that you're going to offer, it's going to be the same thing. And the question is, you have the confidence, you have the knowledge. How is it that you want to move forward?
Okay. That makes sense.
And I'm going to tag on to that and to the teacher analogy. I used to also be a classroom teacher. We have lesson plans with backups. And sometimes you just get into the classroom and it just, something explodes, right? Something happens and your lesson plan goes out the window.
Yeah.
Right. We've all, right? That's fun. We've all had it happen.
Yes.
But you handled that before. You did that before. You got through that class period. And then the next day you picked up your lesson plan again and worked and just started again. And it was fine. And that happens in business too. Sometimes you find you just, you work the plan all you want, and then it just, something happens and that day it goes out the window and you got to improvise a little bit. and you got to go to, item number 67, even though you were only working on item number 4. And
Right,
that's
right.
okay. And I'm like you, I'm also a very organized step-by-step person. Some people on
Yes.
this call know me too well for that, but it's okay. And I think you've got to give yourself a little bit, don't forget to give yourself a little bit of break when that happens.
Okay,
And to lean on your board. And to
okay.
lean on your board. How, do you have a good board? Yeah, what
Yes.
kind of capabilities do you have in your board?
Yes, I do. Miss Fournier brings a lot to the board, honestly. And so I wanted to ask her, did we cover everything that we talked about?
Well, I have a question. I'm not sure if it's anything that we spoke about, but because we have, is it Mean Pham? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Right.
Because of your expertise, I do have a question, and if I may.
Sure.
So you've heard our situation where we do not want to make this public knowledge for the safety of our students, right? As a marketer, do you have any creative ideas or suggestions for how we may be able to help to get the word out to the necessary organizations? Is it something, because we may not know all of the organizations, right, that we want to partner with. So what is the channel that we should use? I know we don't want to do social media, right, because that's too public. But what is the channel that we should use in order to get the word out that we want to partner with, like businesses, like agencies that may be able to, go in together or something like that? Any suggestions that you may have?
Let me clarify that when you talk about identify the potential partner and things like that, like to send the student to, right?
Well, no. So right now we're a new organization, right? So we are trying to get funding. So we're trying to get, the word out to organizations that may be able to, like
Got it. Okay.
we spoke about, that have similar programs, or I don't know specifically what they could bring to the table that we may want to partner with, so that we can at least get the word out that we have this program, so that we will be able to get the students, but I think we want to do some type of communication. So maybe that's the question. What type of communication?
I understand completely, because actually one of my oldest clients, 7 years now, is a Amara Legal. They are a non for survivors in Washington, D.C. And then I have 2 other nonprofits that focusing on, as a client, to focus on domestic violence and sex trafficking victims. So to answer you that, what you're describing is imagine a one-pager about your organizations, and then with the result, the impact, and things like that. You can, once you create that one-pager, you can share that with other organizations, and then see how they can partner with you. And you can provide code, like you can obtain testimonial, code from without describing their name and things like that, include that in that one-pager. So that's one way to do it. In terms of social media and some of other things, one way you want to share, this is called a success story or impact result, is you can tag out their name. You can tag out, you can have it describe the working relationship, like as long as like, like for example, I work with this, and then when she came in, she was like this, and then we were able to help her like that, right? You don't have to describe. That's one way to do it, like just like a story, and then you can just put a stock image or something like that. If in the future you have the capability to do video, like some video, they just have the voice, they don't even have the image of that person, right? Or black out, like you can put the light out, and then you can just see the shadow of that person, right? There's so many creative ways to do it. Like I said, the most economical application for you right now is create that one pager of your result, and then, you know, going from there. And then you can use that one pager to share with other people about your result and getting more additional support. Does it make sense?
Absolutely. And just as a follow-up, and I'm going to just open this up for anyone that wants to respond. I mean, you just mentioned something that we don't have yet, and that is results, right? So we are, you know, when we are getting or wanting to respond to, you know, RFPs, they're asking for results. So we're just starting out. That is, I believe, one of our challenges, right? So one of the hurdles. Any suggestions there?
Well, I don't.
I have a, go ahead.
I never wrote a RFP in terms of the nonprofit side, but as in a business, like what I do is like sometimes if there was something that I haven't done before, I take in, like, let's just say 2 or 3 clients as a pro bono, like to really learn about the work and then be able to get their testimonial result, right? That can go from there. And then also at the same time, it's about the ability to tell a story, right? You know, what's the problems are, why now, and what can we do about it, right? And then you can just like, you can just also use from your experience. Like when I talk to, like one of the people in our community experienced this, another person experienced that. So tell the complete story, right? So that's what I would do if I were in your situations, but I will let other people, who have more experience with the proposal and grant writing to share.
I have a question for you as well. This is Dane Donaldson, by the way. I was sorry I'm late, took me problems getting in, but of the 2 prior clients that you had that are in domestic violence and sexual assault, would they have a need for our training services? Oh, would we be able to partner with them to do this type of training to assist them in moving their program forward?
I think that's a great idea. So that's one of the things I was about to suggest. One addition to talking to all this consultant and all this capacity building people, you can actually email the founder. I know a lot of different people in the the network in that sense, right? Like email them, have a chat with them. They also passionate about the same issue, and then it's just different community and things like that. Why don't we talk to them, right? Learn about how they navigate their organizations. In that way, you can also like see where the organization goes, and then what kind of funding they have. Because from the 3 nonprofit that I work with, they also have different sort of things, right? And then sometimes they partner with one another. Sometimes they become an extension of their program, just like you said, right? Then you can provide a complete cycle. Once the domestic survives, when the survivor come in and they provide all the legal services, get those things done. And like you said, the job training, that's to get them back to their life, right? Those kind of things. I think especially when we're starting out, I think that could build our credential a lot more, right? So I think that would be a great idea to partner with people, identify their needs, and then go from there. And then sometimes they do have because they have the track record and then the capacity with the funding already. Maybe they can apply for another funding and partner with us to do the work. That's also one way for us to build our services and things like that.
Okay.
Does it answer your questions?
Well, that has certainly helped me. I like the ideas. I have a bunch of these ideas now, so thank you. I believe that Lynn was also going to chime in about the results question.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Min. I appreciate it.
I think I'm going in a similar direction to Min. A lot of companies, I think a good way to start is as a subcontractor, as you will. So if you can do, and I think this is where we were all going, if you can have that conversation, you're clearly familiar with the domestic violence community. You know who's out there, who's doing this work. at least I presume, like you're familiar with the Montgomery County Family Justice Center. They have career counseling, for example. WorkSource Montgomery, have you talked with them yet?
I did.
Yes, good job. I would have this conversation with them about how they're structuring and how you can fit in places where they're not fitting, and then B, where maybe that works is in some contracting. In the contracting world, they call that past performance.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's really what you're looking for, I think. And oftentimes you can get it as a small woman-owned business. That helps them, in minority woman-owned business at that helps other organizations with some of their own goals as well.
Okay.
I wouldn't be afraid to play that up
Okay.
when you're looking for those kind of things. So that may be a way to build some of that past performance so that when you're going for the larger grants loans later on,
Okay.
it's a process.
Okay.
And every new idea started without past performance. So
Yes.
Acknowledge that. I mean, I know funders want the security of knowing something works, but what this does speak to is how well you understand, whatever the terminology is. You'll hear the phrase, your theory of change. How your ability to describe why what you think is a approach that works is actually what's really critical. And that's why, again, tapping those people that who will affirm, the pharmacy folks will say, yes, this kind of a program, we're confident that it will feed what we need in terms of the talent and skills. And, you have either partners in the domestic violence space or just people who understand how doing things like the DISC assessment and following those kinds of curriculums have positioned them for success in their lives. And you're taking that logic, and again, this is logic modeling, although they don't, oftentimes they're talking about the stuff, you're
Right.
actually talking about the theoretical, which says, this is why these pieces fit together. Here's the theoretical evidence that we have, or the tangential evidence, which is in these realms, it works this way, and we're bringing it into
Right.
here. So we're not coming from scratch. We're taking some. So telling that story can oftentimes help alleviate that push for, well, what are the results? And again, this is why the relationship and the conversation is so important. If someone doesn't understand your theory of change, that's when they're asking you, show me the results. When you
Okay.
get someone caught up in, I mean, again, I don't want to underestimate. People invest because they care. All the periphery stuff around return on investment, outcomes, past performance, really the success stories are when people connect, and you connect with other people who say, yes, I believe what you do or are talking about doing has the potential to work. I just believe it. You've convinced me. Now let me help you. As opposed to when someone says, prove it to me, that tells you haven't convinced them.
Gotcha.
And if they start saying, well, show me a strategic plan or show me your outcomes, you may want to think, go back to the drawing board again and say, what didn't I hit with the story? Or am I just talking to the wrong person? This might not be the right person who's going to resonate with my story.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Okay, so then what I have next, we talked about, I know we talked about the different, what about trying to get help to help with, if I'm focusing on with staff for trying to get help there, how do we handle that as well? I mean, is that just strictly, we should be looking for volunteers with that, or what would you recommend there?
I can start. I can start.
Okay.
Everyone else can chime in. I always believe there's a certain expectation when it comes to volunteer versus professional staff. And one way to determine that is to build your organizational structure, right? Like what type of information you need, what kind of services to fulfill that role. So let's start with that first, right? And then let's just say the core services that you need the grant for, right? Like you're receiving grant and things like that. And in order to achieve that grant, to get that funding, you need a certain role and responsibilities, right? Can we afford to pay that? That's what the leadership need to do. And if we can use volunteer. And one thing I really cautions about this is volunteer, you know, they can quit anytime. Let's just say that is just reality. And sometimes it's free to receive that resources, but the risk is higher than hiring someone else. One is because they can quit anytime. Second is it takes time to train volunteer over and over again. Your time is very important.
Right.
We don't discount, we don't regard our time as much, but to train them to manage volunteer, it's take a whole person. It's not an easy job for a founder to continue to do that by yourself, right? So, and then I always advise like my clients to, if we can get the funding for just one person part-time, for example, to take care of different role, that could be one. And then when you start filling in the what do you really need, then you can start asking for volunteer. And but just remember that expectation is they can quit anytime, and you cannot really ask them a lot of things versus paying someone to do a specific job, right? So that is something that I seen a lot of nonprofit that I work with have that issues. And then when they overcome that, they learn when they build out that infrastructure, and then they can they understand that, then they have a process to recruit, you know, manage those volunteers and making sure those volunteers are happy, right? Because remember, volunteer, once they're not happy, they can go back and say negative thing about us. Then that is a branding and messaging crisis that we have to resolve. So that is something that people don't think about, the risk of having volunteer. But having volunteer is a wonderful thing. My job is to always tell you, hey, this is the risk that go with it, the pro and con, and we make the decisions based on that, right? And that's something for you to think about. And as in terms of getting more volunteer, as earlier I mentioned about the 3 different story, and you can look this up, is story of self, story of us, and story of now. You can use that. Once you master that technique, you can use that to recruit volunteer, board members, or funders. So story of self, essentially how you come about your problems and how you become who you are today. Story of us is how does it resonate with the audience that you're speaking to. And then the story of now is why it's so important for all of us to act together, to come in and work together now, right? Like in the present. So that is something that you can tweak and continue to develop. And then by doing so, you will have more capability to do your work.
Okay, I like that. What about government or are there any type of county funding for that we could apply for that you know of, anything like that they would offer for new startups for nonprofits? Are there anything like that?
No, I'll just say no, but you should make sure that you are registered with the county grants office. There is a new grants management office that's been established. They have their they don't have their work plan yet. That'll be established in the fall. They don't yet know if they will be issuing grants to organizations. It is extremely competitive the way it's been done in the past. And you do have to demonstrate that you've had funding from another source, that you're a viable organization, and they're small. They start at $2,500 for a year, which isn't going to get you much of anything. It probably shouldn't be the first place that you go. I would look at again some of the corporations that might be interested in sponsoring some of the activities and being named as a sponsor. because they are affiliated then with a good cause, as Lewis said earlier. So there's a lot of other things. At the Nonprofit Village, we also have full access to the Foundation Center directory online, which is a very robust database of more than 100,000 foundations and corporations that give grants in different areas. So we could probably do a quick search for you, but we'll send you some more information on that.
Okay.
Sorry to step in over the panelists.
No, that was good. And then, so the grants, that was one question about grants, but then what about for space? Are there any type of assistance with getting like classroom space? So we could be we're looking to be in a safe space, but we're also looking to be in a permanent space as well, because we want, because of this National Pharmacy training program that we're sponsoring, their rules are we have to mimic an actual pharmacy. So when the survivors are in there for training, we need that classroom, Mr. Justin, to look exactly like when they walk out that classroom. It needs to be, when they walk into the job, it should mimic exactly what they saw in that classroom with the pharmacy prescriptions, all that kind of stuff. So the classroom that we're seeking, even though we will, we're looking at temporary, we're looking for something permanent because of setting up that classroom to mimic the pharmacy and not have to put it up and take it down every single night. So that's kind of one of the things that, we're looking for as well. Are there any suggestions or anything for that? Is there any help with that? Do you know of, or recommendations that you could give, please?
How much space you need?
We're starting off with 7 to 10 participants. So we're looking for at least one classroom, preferably 2, but that's what we're looking for. So the pharmacy team can come in and set that classroom up. So that way it's ready for us to start in this upcoming fall.
And of course you have no money.
Right.
That's okay. I mean, what is a regular office space? Would that work? Or I mean, what are you thinking? Have you kind of thought what this, let's set aside the money piece for now. Let's figure out what it looks like, because then maybe I can see if
the size in terms of 10 by 12,
size,
20.
And what about one of the hospitals, possibly Adventist, who is trying to work with Montgomery College to bring in more students to train in the allied healthcare fields, or even Montgomery College?
Possibly. Don't know if they have space, but we can certainly.
Montgomery College is taking so much of their classroom online.
Virtual, they probably have space.
Yeah.
That's certainly. I mean, are you thinking that it should? Does this look like a regular classroom, or does this look like a retail store, or does this look like an office before you put in whatever you need to put in? What is this?
It's going to look like an actual classroom. Okay, and then they're going to set it up to look like to mimic the pharmacy, because we have to have what we also have that's required by the board, or we have to have computers, because we're looking at trying to get computers. So that way the special software on it is the pharmacy pre-testing that they will actually have to have, and they take weekly. Those computers are set up with that kind of software so they can test and prepare for testing. So it will mimic and prepare them for that national certification exam. So we're looking at being able to set the classroom like the regular seating for classroom, but then we're going to have to set up one side of it. I mean, that's why I was saying it, preferably 2, because we have to have a lab. So I was looking at the one classroom being the actual classroom where they go in and they're with the instructor. The second classroom preferably would be set up like a lab. That would be your pharmacy actual mimicking what's actually in CVS or wherever they are.
Okay. And in terms of square footage or dimension.
So actually, Lynn, can I just chime in one, because
Yeah.
we're trying to create something we don't
can't
know.
fix this. We can't
There,
fix this.
so the question is, and this is, I think, a question anytime you're looking for some of these infrastructure pieces, who does it already? And so who are they? So is there pharmaceutical, are there pharmacist training programs already in the area? What are the facilities they're using, and are they potential partners? Or to what Dane was saying, do they potentially become partners in delivery? So rather than thinking about, what you would need, you reframe that question to say, who already has this? And have the conversations, because they may only use it for 8 hours of the day. And there might be another 16 hours of the day that, it's sitting there idle. And so start to, again, that's where you want to talk to the pharmacy folks that so that you can figure out what are the assets that already exist in the community.
Okay.
That sounds wonderful. It's like the churches that go out and rent out space from another church or from a school instead of, having to come up with a building. So I like that. This is very helpful. Lots of good nuggets here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm really appreciative of that.
You all are down to your last 5 minutes. I don't know how you want to start to wrap up. Levietta, we're going to be sending you some notes. We're going to send you this recording once it's downloaded and cleaned up. And then we're going to be putting you in touch with a navigator for an extra hour or two beyond this. Okay.
I just want to wrap up by saying I really appreciate all of you. I appreciate my team for being here, my board chair, and I thank you so much, all of you, Kim, everyone. I thank you, Mr. Flack. I thank you, Mr. Pollack, Lynn, and is it Pham? Did I get that right?
Min, yeah, just go with
Min.
Min.
Okay, I called you Min. And then Miss Lily over here in the corner who's taking all the notes. I can't tell you, I tried to take notes even though you said I didn't have to, because I had to try to key in on certain specifics that I wanted to make sure I key in on when you send me the actual information. But this has been very, very helpful, very strategic in how you set this up. So I just welcome any comments that you may have. I welcome them. I appreciate it.
That's great. And I actually think you're getting another email today from me, and I think we're going to see you on a program tomorrow too. So,
Okay.
but yeah, you've had an expert panel, this time. Again, thanks to the panelists. We will, unless there's anything else that anybody wants to share. No? Okay. So, Team Overcomers, we'll make sure to get all of the information back to you. That'll be coming from Lily over the next few days, and some more resources. We'll let you know anything else that we have some reference materials on, and hopefully this is helpful. And then we'll connect you to a navigator who can kind of extend this out for another hour or two for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you again. I appreciate all of you. Thank you,
All
Dane and Charmaine.
Thank you all.
Appreciate
Levietta,
Thank you.
Dane,
Good
Dane,
luck.
so much.
I believe
Thank
Lynn had
you.
something to say.
Oh,
Yeah, Lily, we can talk about this later. There are some state resources ultimately that may be helpful for you all. There's money for apprenticeships out there from the state. And if this sounds like someplace you may eventually go. These kind of work, I don't know how WorkSource talk to you, but there is money for these kind of things.
No, they didn't go into any details. They just told me that I mentioned they were talking about the recruiting part. I'm not sure if we're on when we train them, send them to them. That was the most of it. So we didn't get into any detail because I was trying to find out who would I speak to. And the gentleman said that he would have to put me in touch with his supervisor because I wanted to see if we could get sponsorship or if we could partner. So I didn't
Yeah.
get that actually done, but I did mention it to him.
All right, well, you're talking with them so that, you know, all conversations lead to other conversations. So that'll be fine. But and again, some of these resources may be a little bit for you down the line.
Okay.
I think, you know, you may have to get started first, but
Okay.
but the state is very, very interested in training people.
Okay.
Very interested in it. So there may be things, you know, there's places we can take you there. So
I'm positive. Thank you.
us too. Thank you for doing this. It's really important.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Have
Thank
a
you
wonderful
all.
day.
Have a good afternoon. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Thank you.